Welcome to the ADHD Human Design podcast, where we talk honestly about what it's really like to have ADHD and explore how human design can help you finally make sense of yourself. I'm your host, Nicole G., psychologist and human design guide. Welcome to the show. As a human design reader and psychologist who has spent over 20 years working with people with ADHD, I get asked this question a lot. Is there a quote-unquote ADHD chart in human design? Sometimes it's a broader version of that question, like, is there a chart pattern that explains ADHD? And sometimes it gets very specific, such as, is it ADHD if you have an open head center, an open ajna center, or an open root center? Is it ADHD when you have gate 9 without gate 52? Are most people with ADHD generators or manifesting generators? Is it ADHD when you have a lot of right variables? Is it ADHD when you have a lot of open centers in your human design chart? The assumption underneath all of these questions seems to be the same. If human design is a system about differentiation, then maybe ADHD shows up somewhere in the chart. Maybe there's a pattern. Maybe there's even an ADHD chart. And honestly, I understand why people ask. But after years of watching these conversations and living inside both an ADHD brain and a human design practice, I've noticed something. Every time someone proposes a chart configuration that seems to explain ADHD, the pattern starts to fall apart. Here's what I mean by this. Someone might suggest that they've noticed a certain pattern, something like, I'm a manifesting generator. This explains so much about my ADHD. Or if you have an undefined head center and root center, this means for sure that you have ADHD. But then another person will have both of those centers undefined and will not have ADHD. Or someone will notice that so many generators and manifesting generators also have ADHD, but then there's also plenty of manifestors, projectors, and reflectors with ADHD as well. And there's also many generators and manifesting generators who do not have ADHD. So what I've noticed is that the pattern just keeps falling apart, no matter how good the theory behind it sounds. And that should probably tell us something. So let me answer this question directly, at least how I see it. No, there is no ADHD chart. And I feel like I can say this confidently after looking at hundreds of human design charts, many of them for people who have been diagnosed with ADHD. I do not think that there's a type, a gate, a channel, a center configuration, or a variable arrow pattern that points definitively to ADHD. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's not caused by your human design chart, and it can't be diagnosed with your chart. People with ADHD show up with every human design type, with and without certain gates and channels, with every authority, with every definition, with every profile. I've seen people with ADHD who have completely open charts and heavily defined ones. I've seen ADHD in projectors, in generators, in manifestors, and reflectors. The pattern keeps falling apart because I don't think there actually is a pattern. But that does not mean that human design has nothing to say about ADHD. It just means that maybe the question needs to change. So instead of asking what elements in the human design chart point to ADHD, I think a more useful question might be, how does ADHD interact with your specific chart configuration? Because people with different human design charts experience ADHD symptoms in genuinely different ways. Someone with a lot of open centers in their human design chart might experience ADHD primarily as a lot of overwhelm, too much input coming in and no consistent way to filter it out. Someone with strong root center pressure might experience it as chronic urgency that burns through their energy and causes them to constantly leap before looking. Someone with emotional authority might experience it as emotional waves that feel totally unmanageable because the regulatory capacity required to wait out an emotional wave is the exact capacity that is compromised when you have ADHD. All of these chart configurations can shape how ADHD feels in daily life. And to me, that's a much more interesting and much more useful conversation than trying to find the one gate or center that explains everything. And I think the desire for finding an ADHD human design chart comes from a very human place, which is the place of looking for greater validation for what you're going through. If you can find that your ADHD shows up somewhere in your human design chart, it could mean that you're not imagining all of this, that your brain really does work differently, that there's a reason that things have always felt harder for you than they seem to be for other people. That longing makes complete sense to me.
But ADHD is real whether or not your human design chart can confirm it. We don't need a human design chart to validate the fact that you have ADHD. And we don't need to diagnose ADHD from a human design chart, because that's definitely not what the human design system is built for. What I think we do need, and what I don't see a lot of people talking about yet, is a way to understand how an ADHD brain and nervous system interacts with following your human design strategy and authority, with openness in the chart, with conditioning, with the entire experiment of living your human design chart. Because ADHD changes the way that you're able to access each of the elements in your human design chart. It doesn't change the chart itself, but it does change the access. And that's the piece that I think is the most interesting and the piece that's been most missing from this conversation.
If you enjoyed the show, come find me on Substack, where I publish articles that go deeper into everything we've covered here. And make sure you follow the show so you can get notified when I drop a new episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.